From ruling the octagon like a king, to getting knocked out cold in front of millions, to losing everything they built in a single night, to watching their legacy crumble in real time, this is how every UFC champion lost his belt. My name is Detective Lupo, and I've spent decades investigating how power destroys people. But the octagon? That's where I found the purest form of power corruption. But first, let's talk about the party animals. Champions who traded training camps for nightclubs and thought they were untouchable. Jon Jones, youngest champion in UFC history, undefeated for 7 years until he met his real opponent, cocaine. 3 arrests, 2 DUIs, and a hit-and-run later, Jones proved that the deadliest enemy isn't in the cage, it's in the mirror. But Chuck Liddell ruled the light heavyweight division with an iron fist and a granite chin. But success brought fame, fame brought parties, and parties brought Quentin Jackson's overhand right. One punch melted the Iceman forever, similar to Tito Ortiz, who defended his title 5 times, then spent more time in VIP sections than training rooms. The Huntington Beach bad boy became the Huntington Beach has-been, losing 4 of his next 5 fights. Here's what I learned investigating downfalls. When you stop respecting your opponents, they stop fearing you. These champions forget that every night out was a night their opponents were training. But partying wasn't the only killer. Some champions destroyed themselves with pure arrogance, like Ronda Rousey. 13 straight wins, 11 first-round finishes, then she met Holly Holm and learned that confidence without evolution is just delusion. One head kick ended the most dominant reign in women's MMA history. Like Anderson Silva, who spent 7 years making middleweights look like amateurs. But against Chris Weidman, he played games with his hands down and chin up. The Spider got swatted. And 2,457 days of dominance ended in 1 minute and 18 seconds. But Lyoto Machida was untouchable for years with his karate style. But he got comfortable being the hunter and forgot about becoming the hunted. Shogun Rua reminded him with a left hook that sent the dragon to sleep. I've seen this pattern in every celebrity case I've investigated. Success breeds arrogance, arrogance breeds mistakes, and mistakes breed downfall. But some champions didn't lose to opponents or arrogance. They lost to success itself. Like Conor McGregor, who conquered 2 divisions and became the biggest star in UFC history. The Notorious went from collecting welfare checks in Dublin to earning $100 million in a single night against Floyd Mayweather. But with fame came distractions, whiskey brands, movie deals, Twitter wars that consumed more energy than his training camps. The fighter became a businessman, and businessmen don't usually step inside the octagon. Watch his early fights. McGregor was a precision striker, obsessed with timing and distance. But success brought entourages, yes men, and a lifestyle that made 5 a.m. training sessions feel like punishment instead of privilege. When he returned to face Khabib Nurmagomedov, the rust showed immediately. The man who once knocked out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds got mauled for 4 rounds by a wrestler who represented everything Conor McGregor had stopped being: hungry, disciplined, and completely focused on fighting. The Notorious one had become notorious for everything except what made him famous. Like BJ Penn here, who was the most naturally gifted fighter of his generation. But natural talent made him lazy. While his opponents evolved, Penn stayed the same. The prodigy became a cautionary tale, similar to Cain Velasquez, who dominated heavyweights with relentless pressure. But his body couldn't handle the weight of constant wars. Injuries piled up like evidence in a cold case, and the crown became too heavy for the head that wore it. Here's what I learned, folks. Power brings opportunity, but opportunity brings distraction. And in the octagon, 1 second of distraction ends careers. But the cruelest killer of champions never throws a punch. His name is Father Time, and he's undefeated. Look at Fedor Emelianenko, who stayed undefeated for 10 years and is considered the greatest heavyweight ever. But age caught up faster than any opponent could. 3 losses in 13 months proved that time spares no one. Even Ken Shamrock, who was once a UFC royalty, but he couldn't accept that his time was over. The world's most dangerous man became the world's most vulnerable, getting knocked out by fighters half his age. And Matt Hughes ruled the welterweight division with farm boy strength and wrestling. But the sport evolved while Hughes stayed the same. BJ Penn and Matt Serra showed him that yesterday's dominance doesn't guarantee tomorrow's victory. However, Royce Gracie proved that technique beats size in the early UFCs. But when he returned after 11 years, the sport had passed him by. Matt Hughes needed just 1 round to end the legend of UFC champion. I've investigated enough cases to know time is the only criminal that never gets caught, and in the UFC, it has a 100% conviction rate. But the final group of fallen champions lost something more valuable than their belts: They lost their minds. Like Tyrone Woodley, who defended his welterweight title 4 times, then lost 5 straight fights. What changed? Not his body, his mind. The pressure of being champion broke him from the inside out. Similar to Robbie Lawler, who gave us some of the greatest wars in UFC history. But wars have casualties, and the mind keeps score even when the body recovers. The Ruthless One became ruthlessly ordinary. And Anthony Pettis was poetry in motion, finishing opponents with kicks that defied physics. But when the game changed to wrestling and pressure, Showtime couldn't adapt. The artist became a victim of his own masterpiece. But the most tragic case in my files would be Cain Velasquez. Here was a man who embodied everything a champion should be: humble, hardworking, and absolutely devastating in the cage. For 4 years, he made heavyweight legends look like amateurs, ragdolling Junior Dos Santos and dismantling Brock Lesnar with surgical precision. But Cain's body was a ticking time bomb. Every training camp brought new injuries: torn knees, damaged shoulders, a back held together by hope and painkillers. His team begged him to take time off, but champions don't take breaks, they take punishment. And the punishment kept coming. Surgery after surgery, comeback after comeback, each one a little slower, a little more desperate. When Fabricio Verdum finally caught him with that guillotine choke in Mexico City, it wasn't just a loss, it was the sound of a warrior's body finally surrendering to years of abuse. Cain never recovered, not physically, not mentally. The man who once seemed invincible spent his final fights looking like a shadow of himself, getting knocked out by fighters he would have destroyed in his prime. Sometimes the cage doesn't just take your belt, it takes your soul. But if you think losing a championship belt is brutal, wait until you see how rappers tragically die. Because from Tupac Shakur getting gunned down after a Mike Tyson fight, to Biggie Smalls being murdered in retaliation just 6 months later, to Pop Smoke getting killed in his own home by teenagers over jewelry, the hip-hop industry has a body count that makes the octagon look like a playground.